Good evening and welcome to The Report with me, John Rees. On the programme tonight, we'll be looking at the case of British aid worker Alan Henning, as a new video has been released showing another British man believed to be held hostage by the Islamic State. But before that, President Obama has agreed to military plans to provide certain rebel groups fighting the Islamic State across Syria and Iraq with training and logistical support. Nazli Tazi has more.
President of the United States Barack Obama's campaign to confront the Islamic State group has made significant headway after the U.S. House of Representatives authorized the president's proposal to equip and train Syrian rebels in a bid to quash the self-styled Islamic State. The prospect of arming Syrian rebels has aroused skepticism among civilians and lawmakers who fear America could be entering into a war that it may not come out triumphant from. The latest CPS poll revealed a greater number of Americans disapprove with Obama's handling of the threat of terrorism than the number of those backing the administration's thinking on Iraq and Syria. Policymakers and critics, too, have been expressing their concerns for months.
Once you get involved physically, turns into you become the target and other groups come in and so on. So it's better that he builds a coalition, and involves other countries in the fight.
In spite of Obama's assurances that a combat mission in Syria would not resemble that which unfolded in Iraq in 2003, 83% of Republicans believe his plan does not extend far enough and provides no guarantee for no boots on the ground. The rationale behind America's open-ended campaign of airstrikes and training, as Obama contended, is the need to curb the growing terrorist threat and preventing a spillover effect beyond the borders of the Middle East. But the Syrian state and its closest allies have made their warnings very clear, claiming that a counterattack would violate international laws.
Today we're showing the world the best of American leadership. We will protect our people. We will stand with partners who defend their countries and rally other nations to meet a common threat.
As the expansion of America's military plan to degrade and destroy IS amounts to further criticism, opponents have been unable to derail the legislation and thwart Obama's ambitions of defeating the group in the Middle East.
He's promising we're getting the troops out of Iraq. All of a sudden, the Middle East is blowing up left and right, and what are we doing? People are chopping Americans' heads off left and right, and what is our president doing? Nothing.
Whether or not these negative evaluations of Obama's performance as Commander-in-Chief will cause a stir at the ballot box this coming November remains to be seen. Among those endorsing America's latest move is the new Iraqi government headed by Prime Minister Haider al-Abadi and other Arab nations, including Saudi Arabia, who have vowed to do their share in the comprehensive fight against the extremist group. Approval of Obama's military strategy comes after months of U.S. airstrikes targeting IS fighters straddling the Iraq-Syria border since August 8th. The latest vote will now mean that Syrian rebels on the ground can fight at the same time as American forces conducting their aerial bombing campaign against IS. Nazli Tazi, The Report.
Joining me to provide some commentary on the issue, we have Abdul Aziz Mashi, co-founder of the Syria Solidarity Movement, and Sheikh Dr. Khaled Fikry, Islamic scholar and Middle East commentator. Welcome to the programme. Sheikh, this looks as if it's got mission creep written all over it, doesn't it? I mean, first of all, Obama started talking about simply rescuing the Yazidis from the mountain. Then there were airstrikes, then there were airstrikes further down in Iraq, now there are airstrikes in Syria. Now we're talking about arming groups. What do you make of it?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam wa rasulullah. I think the matter will go from worse to worse. I understand that whenever America is involved, things get worse and worse. And now they have been in Iraq before. They have been in Afghanistan. They were involved in Somalia. What I am seeing that they are provoking more and more war, and the civilian war in Iraq and in Syria, it will continue. The airstrikes of America, which it planned to do, did nothing. Even now, when they say we will give armies, we give weapons to the rebels, the moderate rebels, I don't think that all of this will do anything. I think the best thing now for the American and the Western to withdraw and be away and leave the area for its people to do whatever they will do. But whenever they are interfering, things get worse and worse and worse.
Abdul, if you start supplying arms to people that you like, there's no guarantee that they won't end up in the hands of people that you don't like. This is what's happened previously in Syria. It's almost certain to happen again, isn't it, if the Americans start arming the so-called moderate opposition?
Well, the thing is, let me be clear. I mean, in Syria, we have been calling for arming the opposition since since like late 2012 and late 2011. Sorry. And the thing is, this is a good step. This is a good move to arm the opposition. But the question is, why now? I mean, why the international community didn't provide the Syrian opposition with weapons to fight Assad from the beginning? Okay, we know there's the Islamic State now, which the West look at it as the most dangerous organization in the world. But the thing is, do they really expect the Syrian people, the Syrian revolution, to fight for American interest? This is absolutely not. I mean, I am a Syrian, and I know how my people think. In Syria, our first enemy is Assad, and even the Colonel Riyad al-Assad, he made it clear a few days ago. He said, well, you should arm us, but we will fight Assad first. We get rid of Assad, and then we will eliminate any organization that threat our national security or our sectarian life.
Do you think, but do you think this will actually be the impact when the arms start coming in? Because, as I say, the last time the Americans sent limited amount of logistical and technical support, and it ended up in the hands of ISIS.
Yeah, the thing is, because the Americans, they didn't provide the FSA with a powerful weapon, they couldn't defend themselves. This
but
is
if they
the reality.
provided them with a powerful weapon, that would have ended up in the hands.
No,
of...
they didn't provide them with a powerful weapon. They provided them with like a very tiny portion of weapon, and they couldn't defend themselves against Assad and even against other organizations.
Sheikh, do you think that the wrong people are being identified here by the Americans? Because the people who've actually been effective against the Islamic State have been the PKK Kurdish guerrillas and their allies in Syria. So do you think that perhaps, even if you agreed with arming people, yes, they're not necessarily arming the right people?
Yes, I think this is right, an opinion. But let us be more clear in this matter. The IS is against all other groups, even the Muslims. And we have heard many reports that they have been killing civilians, Syrian people and others. The other point is now is that there are real rebels in Syria, as well as in Iraq. There was the village, the people in the villages themselves, they were against the Maliki regime. These things should be considered by the American and the Western. It is not the point of the ISIS. It is people who want their freedom. They think about the dictatorship regimes which was over their heads and next 4 years, and they want to be free from all of this. I think that ISIS will be very limited and it will not continue. The problem is the people, the Muslim people, who are searching for their freedom from these dictator regimes which the Western and the American were supporting for years and years.
Let's move now from the question of arms to the question of bombing, and President Obama says that he wants to extend the bombing to Syria. Isn't the de facto, isn't the actual practical meaning of this that he's going to be bombing in support of President Assad? They will actually have to coordinate the bombing with the Assad regime, because the Assad regime has the kind of anti-aircraft weaponry that could bring down American planes. So, in practice, they're actually allying themselves with the regime.
Yeah, this is the reality, unfortunately, and to be honest, I mean, in order to defeat ISIS, you can't defeat ISIS by airstrikes only. You need troops on the ground. You need allies on the ground who can help you. But the thing is, I mean, the Syrian people, they want to get rid of Assad first, because Assad, the whole thing in Syria was caused by Assad. Even the Islamic State, I mean, look at the major leaders of Islamic State. They were actually prisoners in Assad jails, and he released them, and they established their country. And Assad hasn't even targeted them in the past. So I think it is a very massive mistake for the American to allies with Assad himself, because Assad, he is the main reason for the terrorism in the Middle East and for what's going on in Syria.
What do you make of this?
Yes, I think there is a hidden agenda. The coalition which Obama is calling for, it is not against ISIS. It is against the Islamic revolution. It is against the people who are coming against these two regimes. And the main concern of Obama, as well as the Western, and it was also announced that we are worried about Islamists to come in power. Leave ISIS away now. They don't want any Islamic figures to appear, even if they are moderate. They want their allies to come to power when they get rid of Assad. This is the main issue. The point of ISIS, I think, it is just as a cover for the coalition against the Muslimin who are really fighting against.
Well, let me ask you about that. How do you assess the other groups that are fighting Assad? Give us your take on those.
I think they are justified to fight the regime of Assad, as well as the others when they were in Iraq against Maliki, without specifying which organization. I think they were humiliated, they were tortured, they were killed. More than 200,000 were killed in Syria within the last 3 years. Thousands were killed in Iraq and raped women, as well as torturing and humiliating, so that it is justified that those people should fight against these regimes, and the Western should support or at least leave them. I know that the agenda of the West is not for sake of the real Islamic revolution in these two countries.
But what do you think is going to happen now? Because there are some that are looking at this and saying that whatever the origins of the Syrian revolution, it's now become so militarized and so internalized that it won't be able to bring down Assad. And they look at the American bombing and think that this is going to help him. So where do you think we are with this?
I think it is important to arm the opposition, and I think the Syrian people on the ground, they must make the right decision by fighting Assad by fighting Assad first. If we get rid of Assad, I think the Syrian ideology, the Syrian people ideology, don't accept the ideology of the Islamic State, unfortunately. I mean, the Syrian people in the future, when we get rid of Assad, will decide the shape of the state and whether the state will be Islamic or a civil state or whatever. So I think it is important to get rid of Assad first, and then we can get rid of from other barriers. Assad is the biggest issue at the beginning.
I mean, I'm sure we all agree that that's what's desirable. Do you think it's actually what will happen? Do you think that these weapons will in fact be turned against Assad in the first instance, or do you think that it will be a divided fight?
I wish that it will turn against the Assad and it will be given to the people who are coming really against the Assad. But I would like just to clarify one point. In Islam, it is a peaceful religion, and we have to show all the kindness to all human beings, either Muslims or non-Muslim, even for the hostages and the prisoners. You have seen what Taliban had done with its prisoners. They never beheaded somebody and they declared this. We have Yvonne Redley, for example, which is a very good example. What I would like to say that Islam is a religion which asks its people to defend themselves, to seek for freedom, as well as to deal with other peoples with full equality and respect and honor. So what ISIS have done give a very bad image. This is not the image of Islam. And many Muslim scholars all over the world, they declare this.
We'll be coming on to some of this later in the program. Yes. Abdul, let me just ask you this. Do you think that if the West was serious about this, they would say to their ally in Turkey, look, this border is still open. The IS are going across it. Not only are they going across it, they're taking tankerfuls of oil and selling it on the black market in Turkey. Surely if we were serious about this, we'd be dealing with this problem.
Exactly. I mean, I don't understand how the international community entirely deal with the Syrian crisis. I mean, look at these fighters who came from everywhere. How could they manage to get into Syria? Obviously, I believe all intelligence services like the CIA, the MI5, they know about those people, and I think if they were serious, they could prevent them from reaching Syria. And look at their origin countries. It is kind of like, okay, we have some extremists, let's get rid of them by sending them to Syria. Unfortunately, and who's gonna suffer at the end? The Syrian people, my people. They're gonna struggle because look at the UK, for example. They have criminalized the British citizen who went to Syria, and what does that mean? They will stay in my country and they will make
So we're running short of time now, but so briefly, Sheikh, what's your take on this? Do you think that they should be more serious with some of their allies, NATO and others, that have been at the root of creating the Islamic State?
The matter is complicated, as you have just mentioned now. America should be allying now with the Syrian regime, as well as with Turkey, as well as with Iran. Previously, they were their enemies. But now the situation in the ground is that if they want to fight ISIS, they have to make some sort of a dealing with the Syrian regime. And this is maybe not accepted at all with other Islamic rebels and the other revolution. What I would like to say that the best thing is that the people should do themselves whatever they see that it is more beneficial for themselves. Leave the Western, whenever they put their nose, I'm sure that the things will get more and more and propagate more and more danger in the area as a whole.
Okay, well, thank you very much.